Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast with Mike Van Pelt. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul, and a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep-seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, this is a very special edition of the True Man Podcast. With me today is a good friend and, of course, original contributor, Paul Baily. Paul, welcome back to the show. It is so very good to have you here.
Good to be back. Good to be back. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So last year, about this time, and to be honest with you, in the middle of complete life disruption for me and my family, Paul and I began the True Man Podcast. And little did I know how it would go, what God had in store for me and the show, and how it would begin to transform what I was setting out to achieve professionally in my life. Now, I'm not a technology guy. Now, Paul has seen the board, and so, you know, when he uses same microphone and all this stuff. Now, for me, I'm looking at this thing now and I'm going, wow, there are a lot of buttons on there. And it really seemed like this was going to be a daunting challenge for me. Not to mention, you know, you got to edit everything. You got to put it online. You got to find guests, blah, 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 blah. You know, to be honest, this podcast was something that made me extremely nervous and uncomfortable as somebody who's private and doesn't talk about certain things publicly, maybe plays it close to the vest, you might say. However, somewhere on the journey, God provided me the confidence, incredible guests, and a platform to serve men in a way I have yet to really fully wrap my arms around. And I'm grateful to so many people that have encouraged me, said nice things about me, the podcast, and supported me along this journey. And certainly Mr. Paul Baily is at the top of the list. So today we celebrate our 50th True Man Podcast. Paul, do you remember that first episode?
Yeah. And by the way, you've come a long way, baby. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing either. And it probably was a good thing because we were shooting for transparency and getting real, right? Well, it was real.
It was real. And, you know, if we're being honest, that first one took a little liquid courage as well, if I remember.
No comment.
So now he did not remember. Paul just said we were being transparent. So
transparent, social lubricant. Is that what you're talking about? Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, and we had to do that. Neither one of us really had any very little behind the mic experience. Actually, didn't you, Paul, if I remember right, maybe had a little radio, done something?
No, sir. No, not a bit.
Nothing.
Nope.
Okay. So we were cold turkey on the microphone thing. And, you know, really, we just decided, heck, we're going to let this thing rip and really chase the heart of men. And
absolutely. If a couple of schmucks like us can do it, imagine the average guy.
Yeah.
What they could do, right?
Yeah. There you go.
I'm grateful. I am grateful for the opportunity and for watching it evolve as you've continued to put the time, energy, and courage into it. So good on you.
Well, courage being the key word there. It was not easy to turn that microphone on the first time. And I think it took me about 2 months, if I'm being honest, to figure out how to get listed on Apple, which is, any podcaster knows, can be a journey if you don't know what you're doing. But we finally figured it out and really got this thing up and going, and had a show out there every week since I think the first week of June or somewhere around that time frame. So we've been knocking them out ever since. And by the way, if you love the show, give us a review on Apple. We'd love to hear from you. That kind of keeps us going. But, you know, part of this show is really a celebration. Many people don't know this. The average podcaster lasts 7 episodes, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's just so doggone much work. But it's really become quite a joy in my life. And if I've learned a thing or two over the last few years, it's that you got to take time to celebrate. And I haven't always done that, quite honestly. In fact, I've probably spent more time weltering in self-pity. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of guys do that same thing. And, we kind of get a win and move on to the next big thing, but we sabotage the joy we're looking for, I think, when we do that. Paul, what do you think about that? Why don't we take the time to celebrate?
Boy, there's probably a number of reasons why. I suppose all I can do is consider my particular situation. I think celebration is incumbent upon gratitude, right? Being able to recognize just how fortunate we are to have moments. And in our culture, in our society, and we're already bent this way, we're always positioning ourselves for the next best thing, right? As Eldridge would say, the upgrade of everything has set expectations so high that you get yourself in a position to where you're making some improvements and some achievements. And the guy that looks back over his shoulder and takes a moment for celebration is standing on the shore, watching the water go by. And for Pete's sake, you're not rowing your boat now at this point. So who has time to celebrate? There's the next thing. There's also the component, right, of, you can probably pick apart anything that you've done and kind of discount the mileage you've put on the vehicle and the dues you've paid. So celebrating takes gratitude, but it also recognizes, I think, in our weakness, there are times to take a moment and appreciate the goodness that's come from the hand of God, loving friends, a family, whoever and whatever. It's a good settling opportunity to get a shot of reality. There are things that should be celebrated.
Yeah. I was recently having a conversation with somebody. I haven't even told you this story, Paul. And we were talking about marketing and kind of the direction of where I wanted to go in my coaching and everything. And I said, let me tell you what matters to me. I said, the number one thing that I want to be connected with, no matter what, is the word true man. And they're like, why? I said, because that's how it all started. A little group in Spartanburg, South Carolina, got together and figured out how to do life together and in a godly way. And if I'm going to be connected with something, I want to be connected with that. And whether it's the True Man podcast, the True Man book, the True Man speaking, the True Man, whatever it is, I want to help other guys figure out how to be a true man. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, Paul, but and I'm grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. And the funny thing about that, you remember we took a break from our small group for about a month.
Yeah.
In the middle of summer. I don't even remember. Maybe it was a summer of 2018 or I don't even remember at this point. I get COVID brain. But we kind of came up with this whole idea. We tried to name our group and we came up with this idea of True Man. And I love it now more than I did when we came up with it.
Well, I'm telling you that it's a loaded phrase. You can digest it word by word, but there's a lot there under the surface. If you were to pull it apart, what does it actually mean to be true? And especially in the light of where we're at culturally, politically, socially. And for Pete's sake, we've been picking apart the definition of manhood for a number of decades now, right? It just goes on and on with more blood in the streets as it relates to what does it mean to live masculine existence in a world, certainly in a culture that has done everything it could to undermine and question the validity of the male species.
What does it mean to you, Paul? What does that? I mean, we got this from a true man masculinity perspective. What does it mean to you?
I think it probably, if I were to crystallize what I believe that phrase represents, it's living out the unique maleness of what God intended man to do in the world in a way that makes no apologies, makes inroads into the areas that need to be influenced, and stands up against evil. More could be said about that, but I don't think many men, probably very, very few, could get clear or could articulate what it means to live truly as a man designed to order their little kingdom and to speak truth into what has become a very chaotic existence. Most guys, I think, are just trying to hang on until 4:30 Friday afternoon, look for a little relief, a little comfort before Monday 7:30 rolls around and they've got to be back on the freeway or doing whatever they have to do. But I don't think many men right now could or even are equipped to take the time to even consider that their existence is so much more than their paycheck, than their status. It's been said, they were so impoverished, all they had was money. And I just thought, that just hits the nail on the head. When all you have to rely on is your skill sets or the money in the bank, or the praise of men, you are not a rich man. You are winging it. And you can only ride that horse so far.
Wow. Chew on that for a while. No, I agree. Paul, it's and listen, we were those guys. Maybe in some respects we still are because we're always growing, right? But I mean, I circle back to some of our original discussions, and it's amazing to me that the hand that God really had in steering us in the directions that he did so that we could get the information, have a desire to go seeking information, and then get that information and figure out how to live a life of more.
Yeah.
Rather than, closing up shop every Friday afternoon and then turning around and doing it on Monday morning all over again. And somehow you hope you just figured it out on the weekend between, 3 or 4 cans of Budweiser or whatever your choice of drink is. But
that kind of existence does not give a lot of pause or motive or incentive to celebrate, right? That's survival. That's skating. And I was thinking about this as I've been reading through chronological Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Right now, I'm kind of writing the life of David, but it's not too many years prior. God had set up his laws, the times that he wanted to be doing, folks doing certain things. And one of them was festivals. One of our celebrations. And you're thinking, okay, if the God of the universe knows people need time for reflection, for gratitude, then I'm going to put that into the way that they're to live in my ordinances and laws and whatnot. And he was serious about this. You don't miss feasts. You don't miss celebrations. These are things that he wanted those folks to do. But more importantly, he wanted them to remember the story of his redemption and the core of the reason they could celebrate. I mean, it's great to celebrate a birthday, an anniversary, good deal, right? A retirement. That's all good. And I hope that that's not the only celebrations folks are having. It's quite likely that they are, but God had drawn such a bigger picture. I want you guys to celebrate how good I am to you, how faithful I've been. Yes, life's tough, but there is reason to pause and remember who I am and who you are in light of who I say you are. And, that was great in the Old Testament, but we've been given something much, much bigger, something much, much better. We've been given the Spirit of God. If we want to be a part of his family, he will give us his Spirit and will walk with us as a father does a son. And so, I think it makes a lot of sense. When's the last time you got invited to a Christian celebration for the goodness of God? Now, some might say that happens on a Sunday morning. I doubt it. But
not everywhere.
What would it look like if Christians that are so caught up in God's goodness literally held a celebratory event where they could talk about what God's done in their life in the midst of pain, in the midst of sorrow, frustration, a broken world? I have to admit that is not a part of life that I have really dove into, and maybe this is the reason we're talking about it today.
Yeah, it's funny when you were describing that. Plug for my North Cobb Rotary here in Kennesaw, Ackworth. We're just fresh off a festival that we had over the weekend, where we were raising money, and the barbecue was great, right? Great food, great bands, great socializing, but we were really celebrating the fact that we've got the ability and the means to raise money so that we can help other nonprofits, which goes to help others in need. And I got to tell you, I spent several hours parking cars. And really, I just kind of kept glancing down at the festival area because I was up on a hill, so I could see the festival area set up. And I just kept glancing around. I knew all the cars that were going on around me trying to park, but I just kept looking down there to see the people having a good time and enjoying themselves. And I wanted to see the numbers show up, right? Because I knew that the more people that showed up, the better time they had, the better opportunity we had to raise money and serve people that need it. And, I just thought it was really cool. I had a great time, and we raised a lot of money, and it's going to go to do good things in our community. And, I was thinking about that as you were describing what, festivals and that type of thing, and thinking to myself, man, yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun knowing that you were doing something good that was, going to linger on for a year, essentially, right? We did 4 or 5 hours of a festival on Friday night in order to have the funds to go out over the next year and help people that really, really need it. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
I just think that, that's kind of one of the first things that came to my mind when you were talking about, because I'm just fresh off that. Plus, I can still taste the barbecue. So that's a good thing.
Love Southern barbecue.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a time to celebrate, for us and the podcast. And, Paul, have you had a moment early on where we were doing this where that you can think back on and you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, or this is great, or I don't know. Is there anything that kind of comes to your mind?
I think that not exactly in that sense. I think I was, quite frankly, a little bit perplexed or caught off guard when you talked about people actually listening to us. I mean, I was shocked. For Pete's sake, people are that desperate. Good gosh, what's going on here? But no, to be serious about it, I can only wrap my mind around and digest this, that in fact, there are men out there that this resonates with, and they know something isn't quite right. They've not been able to figure out exactly what's off, but they know intuitively things have gone off the rails. I'm probably in need of a reset. I'm certainly not settled or oriented like these guys are talking about. Not that we've arrived, but they're hinting at there's more to be had. And there's a context that I need to get comfortable and familiar with so I can get oriented in my story and ultimately the larger story.
Yeah.
So that I don't waste my life sitting and spinning, trying to figure out how to navigate a very confusing world with no guarantees in 65 years that I've got anything to show for it. That's the ultimate to me, that somebody would tune in and say, you know, I think I'm hearing something that's inviting me to something bigger.
Yeah, Paul, for me, when somebody tells me they listen to a certain podcast or whatever, it still blows my mind. I mean, I'm humbled by it every time that somebody tells me that. And you know, but it does keep me going. You know, I'm reminded of I love, you know, all the Rocky movies and stuff like that. So, you know, there's a scene in Rocky Balboa where he's talking with Paulie. And if you remember Paulie is Rocky married Adrian, of course, and Paulie is Adrian's brother, and he worked at a meat packing plant, and he's always worked at a meat packing plant. And so Rocky Balboa is long past his prime, but he's talking with Paulie, and he says to Paulie, man, he's basically saying, I'm conflicted. I got stuff going on in the basement. And he's rubbing his stomach, you know, I got stuff going on in the basement. In other words, he's got stuff going on that he hasn't quite worked on. And it's just sitting in the basement. And it's quite a scene. You can look it up on movie clips. But the point of that scene is this. A lot of us, including Paul and I both, have had stuff going on in the basement. And when things are unsettled and they don't feel very well and you can't figure out how to rectify it, that can lead to a real life of misery, quite honestly. And, I think a lot of guys go through that. And so that's something I think, Paul and I have done a lot of work on from a faith standpoint, being involved in men's small groups and going on various retreats where there's information that's available to us to understand that having stuff going on in the basement, like Rocky had going on, it's there. We all go through it, but you don't have to live like that. And, that's why the podcast exists. I think one of the reasons we want to help guys that have stuff going on in the basement so that you can take the elevator up to your heart and heal a little bit. How about that? That was good, wasn't it, Paul? You like that?
Yeah, that's good. We've all got stuff in the basement. You never get done cleaning out the basement, right? And ultimately, we're pretty limited as to what we can do. But the power of God, of redemption, is miraculous in the company of brothers.
Yeah.
To make huge progress, to recover joy, gratitude, inspiration, courage, confidence. That is available. Not perfectly.
No.
But far more than most men who are living lives of what quiet desperation, I believe is the phrase.
Yep.
Are acquainted with or have been even offered. So if you need those resources, if something has struck a chord, let's hear from you. we would love to reach out and to be a resource for you. God has so much more available.
Oh, for sure. And that, listen, that's why I kind of affectionately called myself the comeback coach, because listen, as a redemption, a second chance, a pivot point, a comeback, well, heck, those all more or less mean the same thing. And the whole point is that they're available to all of us. Now, that may require you to make a choice in some areas of your life, may require you to take a hard look in the mirror, but it's available.
Absolutely. The alternative is not attractive.
No, we've seen it, or maybe we've lived it, or maybe a combination of both. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, this, I'll tell you what, I really am thankful. I would have, in a million years, I would have never thought I would have been doing a podcast, or I would have been talking about some of this stuff. But I love having the platform to help guys make a change in their lives. Because listen, if you make that change for you, it's not just for you. It's for your kids, it's for your family, it's for your coworkers. I mean, the list really goes on and on and on because of, think about that. All the people you interact with on a daily basis. What would it feel like to be present and oriented every time you had one of those, had a conversation with somebody?
It's a game changer.
It really and truly is. And, I think going down this avenue has absolutely changed my life. I mean, virtually every call I'm on, we're talking about this type of subject matter. We're talking about God and how a relationship with Christ and our faith affects our lives, our business lives, our marriages, our children. And I find it very gratifying.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. You're not alone. There is life available. So don't be a stranger.
Well, yeah. And hey, listen, I'm going to do something that, apparently I think I only do when I have you on, Paul.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so, we need to do this. I don't do this often enough. It's kind of hard to do with guests on, although I think the guests kind of give their own call to action. So I thought, hey, before we wrap up, maybe we'll give the audience a call to action like the good old days, like we used to do when we first started the show. But before I do that, is there anything else, Paul, you would like, celebratory, of course, that you'd like to share with the audience here as we, before we sign off on the 50th True Man podcast? Who'd have guessed it?
Mike, frankly, your courage, your leadership, your willingness to step into chaos and ride it through, because it's been quite a year, despite a move and son in college, daughter pondering her future, wife changing major careers. Kudos to you. You're leading the way in ways that may not be flashy, but you've put the time in the trenches and the foxhole. So here's to you. Way to go. Keep it up.
Thank you, Paul. That means a lot. Getting a little emotional here. It's you. Many people don't know this. I was encouraged to start the podcast, and I just flat out ordered the equipment, thinking, well, if I don't order the equipment, this is never going to happen. And I ordered the equipment and I set it up down in my basement. And Paul and I finally got around to recording that first one. And I thank you for that. I thank you for being there for me, for encouraging me. This was I always laugh. I tell people, I'm like, well, this was kind of a joke before it was real. We used to end our men's small group and go, we should have recorded a podcast. And now for almost a year. We've been doing that. And, I look forward to the future of the True Man podcast and seeing where this brand goes. So thank you for being there for me and keeping the show going. So with that, let's get back to that old call to action on the podcast. So as I was preparing today for this episode, God put some verses from Ecclesiastes on my heart. Chapter 3, verse 4. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And doing this podcast has been a time to dance. And it makes me dance all the time. Sometimes a little faster than I would like, but that's okay. And so, I just want to encourage everybody, send you some encouragement here. If you don't have something giving you time to dance in your life, I want to encourage you to pray about it. And I'm going to have another word on that because I got another verse from Ecclesiastes as well. And that is out of chapter 3, verse 13. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. I sincerely believe this podcast has been a gift to me. I know it has for Paul, and I hope it has for the listener. And I would encourage you, if you're wondering about your gifts, again, pray about it. But also, I am a men's life coach, and I want to come walk alongside you. If you're wondering, well, I'm having this challenge. I got stuff in the basement. I'm not dancing like I should. I'm not taking the pleasure and celebrating like I should. Yeah, we don't want that for you. You don't want that for yourself. And we can help get you on track. So reach out to me at Mike@Start Your Comeback Story and send me an email. Get in touch with me. And let's talk about how you can dance more and celebrate more in your life. With that, let's end today's podcast with one of Paul's great prayers.
All right. Thank you, Father. Thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you for allowing us to recognize areas that we can be grateful for. Thank you for allowing us to see seasons in life, whether they're tough, easy, or somewhere in between, that are directly from your hand, and that you've equipped us to walk through anything holding your hand tightly with the hope that a very good father cares for his kids in ways that we can't always see, but we can be certain of. Thank you for loving me even better than I love my own kids. I ask that you'd give us insight and confidence in your faithfulness. Give us courage to face the things that scare us and strength to move through those dark times. Pursue you. In your name, amen.
Amen. Paul, thank you for that. Thanks for being on the show today. And thank you to everyone that listens to the True Man podcast. And we look forward to our next celebration, 100. Take care.